Oh, nearly. That was a close one. Good morning, good day, good evening, good night, and welcome. And my name is Caroline. I'm from Bubbly Maths, and I'm presenting these activities for AIMSEC. And you can find all of these activities on the Aiming High website. And there's a link to this one in the description, and also a couple of YouTube videos for you to follow through on. The first thing we're going to do is all about dimensions. We're going to be, let me just now make screen share. Screen share. Let's have another go. Screen share. Right, let's stop that and start again. Oh no, I don't want to leave the meeting. That's not what I want to do at all. That's probably why that happened in the past. What if I do that? Ah, that's better. Nearly cut you off there. Now if I start screen share, will it come up? Yes. Okay, so technological challenges. It'll all be grand, and I'm doing the screen share so you can see. Not screen share, that's not it. Stop share. Let's have another go. That one. Share. Stop share. One more go. Third time lucky. I am doing, otherwise I'll have to do it visualizer. This says visualizer. Ah, the visualizer is not looking at the right thing. So visualizer. Get the visualizer out. Get the visualizer. How's the visualizer coming up with that image? The visualizer's being silly. Services preferences, we're going to make it so that it actually looks at the visualizer is not looking at me at all. So how it's come up with that conclusion, I have no idea. Input sources, here we go. Technology, here we go. We're working out the input. No, that's not it. Well, we might have to, this hasn't happened before. Oh, here we go. This might be it. No. Ah. So if you've ever in your life have to diagnose a problem, one of the things with electronic devices is make sure it's plugged in. So I thought I had, and I clearly hadn't. So now let's see if, I don't want that one. I don't want that one. Oh, okay. Hooray. We have liftoff. Hooray, hooray, hooray. Right. Now, I can now share that with you. I was looking at the visualizer, showing the visualizer, but not noticing that the visualizer was a picture of me. Good grief. Right, here we go, and share. And that's wonderful. You've now got a pink piece of paper. Excellent. I'm going to double check that that's what you actually are seeing. And it's not showing me, so I'm not going to worry about that. Just keep that. Just trust that you're now seeing the piece of paper. And if anybody has any comments, I don't get to see the comments during the session. So I'm hoping, so if you do have to tell me something, like yesterday there was no sound, and afterwards my friend Terry said, there's no sound. Well, not afterwards, he put it on the comments, but I don't see those till afterwards. So if you're there, Terry, call me. I'm hoping it's all working now. Anyway, so what we're going to do is we're going to make paper sticks. Paper sticks are not essential. I'm sure you've got other ways of doing it, but they're a great way of doing this activity. I'm just having a look, see, making sure it's coming up. So far, sort of so good. This is one of those, clearly, one of those days, right? So what we're going to do is get some newspaper. So I've got what you want to do with these as well is make sure that, I mean, you can use scrap paper, you can use scrap A4 sheets as well. I've got lots of ones that I can reuse here, but I kind of like the feel of newspaper, and also you're not relying on having to buy paper, because a lot of the people that can benefit from these activities are based in rural and disadvantaged areas. And also, if you go to school, then you don't have to use your precious, if you're at a school, you don't have, oh dear, I think I'm going to use the scissors on this one. It's not going to tear well. If you don't have to use your precious printing paper, if you don't have many A4 sheets or letter size sheets, you can get everyone to bring in some newspaper and pick out all the ones that are the same size, and then get together making loads and loads and loads of paper sticks. The more paper sticks, the merrier, because there's so very many things you can do with paper sticks when you start sticking them together. So what you do is, first of all, I'm going to fold it in half so that they're all the same size. Get everybody to fold theirs in half, or you can cut them in half and fold that in half. You can make smaller sticks. I like this size, so we're going to do this size for today, just as long as everyone has the same size sticks. So that's a nice little measurement activity as well, and get your proportions right. And how am I doing with this? I can't see that. There you go. Get that aligned nicely. So you've got a little bit of practice with controlling what you're doing. And now we're going to fold it in thirds. Now this is another nice little activity. To fold it in thirds, if you want, when you fold this over, the bit that you're folding over wants to, so I'm still not coming up to show me whether or not you're seeing the right thing. I'm hoping you are. So the end wants to go halfway, wants to end up at the halfway point of what's left. So 1/3 is going to go halfway down the other 2/3. If you think about it, it makes sense. And if you don't get it yet, just do it and it will click. And that really helps you understand thirds as well. And I didn't get it halfway down. You could have a little competition even, who can get the closest to halfway down. Oh, look, I might have got it halfway down, but I didn't do a very accurate fold there. So let's see what happens. So the accuracy of your fold will count if you do that little competition. Now I'm going to get a piece of string with enough at the end to tie on either end, because we're going to tie these sticks together. Then we're going to put it in on the flap. You can lift the flap up, so if one flap's down in there and one flap comes towards you, put the string in there. And what I'm going to do is going to stick, keep looking for better ways to cut the tape, because I'm solo here. If there's two of you, you can see that tape's too long. We want it shorter than that. Might be able to use this, so I'm not going to throw it away. I'm going to save that, waste not, want not. Now we're going to stick this piece of string on there. The reason why I'm sticking it on is that when you're tying the sticks together, it's quite easy to pull the string out completely. So if you stick it on, then it's more likely to stay in. So now I'm going to roll it up as tightly as you possibly can. And I'm still waiting to see if you're seeing what I'm doing. I'm hoping you are. Otherwise, you've got this little thing here, me looking to one side. I'm hoping. Oh, that looks good. Okay, good. Finally, it's come up. I can see you're looking. You can see what I'm doing. Rolling all the way up. I've shown this. If you've watched my lives before, you've seen this a few times. So I'm going to use that little bit that I had extra there just to hold it. And then I'm going to use the longer bit to wrap it round, because what's happened, my experience is that if you only put a little bit on, don't wrap it all the way around, it does actually come undone quite easily. So wrap it all the way around, then you can decorate your sticks. It depends what you're going to make with them. I'm quite pleased with that one. That's quite a nice, neat little one. And what we're going to do today is we're going to make a cube. So you've got to make, well, I'll let you work out how many of these you're going to make a cube. That's what you're going to make. So you're going to work out how many you need. So you won't have time to do that while I'm doing the live. So you can go ahead and make it afterwards. I'll go through what you're going to do, and then you can just replay the live to do the activity. To tie the sticks together, it's quite simple. I've actually just been, if you know how to do, I can't even remember the name of the knot. There's a knot I learned how to do last night. See if I can do it. And that's that way. I'm not even sure if I can do it now. Let me see if I've done it. No, I haven't. I'll have to work it out again. Anyway, there's a nice knot you can do, which means you can untie them again. And I'm going to have to, a reef knot. I'm going to just tie it that way because I'm going to untie it later, but just do a double tie. You can always trim them. These two is ideally what you end up with. And my brain went, during the live, my brain does tend to go, which is fine. That's absolutely fine. I revel in my mistakes and my failings because I know everything I do, I'm going to learn. I know I'm always growing, and I'm cool with that. So, right, now what are we going to do with it? Well, let's have a look. We've got our cube. Well, before we actually start with our cube, let's go back to basics. Now, this session is for 7 to 18-year-olds. I'm going to come back in at 10 o'clock, so in 50 minutes, and do a session for early years. Having said that, we are going to start quite early in the progression of, I'm looking for, here we go, here's the stick I made earlier. And we're going to talk about dimensions. So, do make the collapsible cube. I've called it, yes, well, it's called a collapsible cube, so it's not a surprise. Okay, now we're just going to talk about, going to go back to basics and talk about some very simple things. One, what are dimensions? Well, dimensions, we've got a line. A line, okay, you've got to use your imagination. Pretend, let's use a string. Let's use a piece of string, and the string is a line. There's only one way you can go on that line. You can go along it. You can go along it. Whoopsie. Let me see, how can I tie that there without losing, there we go. You can go along it in one direction or back in the same direction you came from. There's only 2 directions you can go in, and that's all you can do is go along that line. That's called one dimension. Then the next progression is you've got, let's use this one, let's not waste one that's in my pad. You've got a sheet of paper. If you're on a sheet of paper, now, the one string you can imagine goes on forever to infinity in one direction and forever infinity in the other direction. So, and the other thing is, when you're going in one direction, you're going forward in one direction, you're going backwards if you go in the opposite direction. That's quite important concept. Okay, now we've got a sheet of paper. It's flat. It's got, we can go like our piece of string, we can go forwards and backwards on it, but we can also go in any direction as long as we stay on the plane. We were on a line before, now we have a whole plane. But all we can do is move around on this plane. We can't go anywhere else, so we can move forwards, we can move to either side, and we can move backwards. So let's move it with a pen, maybe we can, oh, I know, we're going to have, Super Mario's going to do it. He can go forwards, he can go to either side, or he can go backwards. But there is a problem. Super Mario, in this is flat land, Super Mario would actually have to be flat, completely flat, flat as a pancake, so that he could move forwards and to either side and backwards and anywhere in between, but only on that piece of paper. That's 2 dimensions, forwards, backwards, and to either side. anywhere within that can go slightly forwards and slightly to one side, slightly backwards and slightly to one side, but only, that's it, we're stuck in flat land. There's nowhere else to go. We can go to infinity in that direction, infinity in all directions, but only on that plane. That's 2 dimensions. Now look at this guy. He's not really on 2 dimensions, is he? He's, especially Super Mario, boing, boing. He can jump up and do all kinds of things. Well, actually, it's not Super Mario, is it? Is it? I don't know. It's got an L on it. So maybe I'm ignorant about it. I know he's from Super Mario's land. He wants to jump around. He wants to do stuff. So he needs another dimension, the dimension that we live in. So he can now go forwards and backwards. He can go to the east and to the west. He can go in that direction and back again. So we're always, these are the, if he's going this way, these are the positive direction. We're going forwards, we're going east. All these others are going this way, it's going backwards. But he can also go up, oing, right up to you, hello, and down. But he can go down past the paper and under the table and in all directions. That's 3 dimensions. 1 dimension, 2 dimensions, and 3 dimensions. Right. Now look around you. Look around the room you're in. Can you see any walls? Can you see the floor? All of those walls and the floor and maybe even the ceiling, they have 2 dimensions, but they're part of a 3-dimensional space, the space that you live in. And we call those flat surfaces, we call those the faces of the room. So we've got the ceilings is a face of the room. It's a 2D shape that's a face of the room. The floor, it's a 2D shape that's a face in the room. All the walls, if you've got any windows, each of those panes is a face. It's a flat 2D shape. Now you might have other 3D bits within the window or a door, but each flat 2D shape is a face. And we can generalize and say a whole wall, even if it isn't all flat, is a face. So now we're going to look at, and where's it gone? Right, I might have to make another one. I've got some nice bits of paper here, nice examples. Whoopsie. You get some cardboard. Going to get some cardboard here. There's a bit of cardboard. Look at the edge there. Whatever your name is, are you Super Mario? I don't know. You don't have an M on your hat. I might have to check that up now. And I've got another piece of cardboard here. Let's have a look, see at the difference between these bits of cardboard. Get my scissors. I'm going to cut out a rectangle from this piece of cardboard. Well, it's not exactly a rectangle, but it is a 2D shape. Or is it? Let's see, I'm going to put that, think about whether or not that's a 2D shape. And I'm now going to cut this one up. I'm going to make approximately, roughly the same shape on this one. There we go. Now, that's a 2D shape, right? Look at it carefully. Look at it really carefully. And then this one, that's a 2D shape, but look at it carefully. So, and then what about a piece of paper? Is that truly 2D? Is it really only got 2 dimensions, or is there some thickness to the paper? And what about if I fold it up, if I make it into a pamphlet? Let's say I'm going to make it into a nice pamphlet that we can take home with some information about maths and aiming high and AIMSEC and bubbly maths. And now look, is that 2D? Looks 2D like that, but is it 2D? And even one piece of paper has a little bit of thickness. This card certainly has a bit of thickness, and it's even got look, it's even got some 2D grooves, some 3D grooves in there. It really isn't flat. And then this one, you can even see the layers in that one. There are layers in this one, or at very least there's thickness of that one and there's thickness of this one. These you can even see the layers. That really illustrates how it's really not quite 2D. Now, just with playing with all of this, we're now going to get, this is, hopefully we've got that straightened, that we're very clear on that. So now you can take your 3D cube that you're going to make and you can collapse it and see what 2D shapes you can make. I've made one there. You can draw them out and you can talk about them. You can talk about the faces, the edges, the length of all the edges, how many edges they've got, how the edges compare with each other. You can talk about what other shapes can you make. There are more shapes. There's some very exciting 2D shapes you can make. There's lots of different shapes. Just keep playing with it and see how many, ooh, I don't want to reveal anything, how many different 2D shapes you can find. Now, if you're in, one of the things we were talking about with, let me just make sure I've got the right pens going here. Got one there. One there, right, okay. Now, another example of, if I draw that line there, this illustrates it a little bit more. And then I draw this one here. Are they both one-dimensional lines? Is either one of them a one-dimensional line? This one's closer to being a one-dimensional line, but it's on the piece of paper, it's got thickness. The ink itself has thickness. So it's the closest that we've been able to demonstrate to a one-dimensional line, but it's only a demonstration, it's not for real. And this one for sure, look at that. It's got very clear width. So it's definitely a two-dimensional space, but we use them to illustrate. It's okay for us to draw them to look like a one-dimensional line, and then we just have to use our imaginations to then take it into the real world of one dimension, which can only exist in our imagination or under a very, very, very fine microscope, in which case I'm not even sure we can do it. One dimension is just so small. It's not even a molecule thick, because a molecule thick has a size. It actually has a size. So, so this is where you've got to use your imagination to imagine a real 2D shape that actually is thinner than a piece of paper. And it's just pure, it's pure one dimension. It's like, it's a 2 dimensions or pure 1 dimension. You've got to use your imagination. And that's what we do in maths. We use our imaginations to visualize the real case, and we use physical things to make an approximation, to make it look, to help our imaginations create the reality which can only exist in our imaginations. So we can look at, when we make the shapes, make different, when we do make the cube, not only we want to look at the 2D shapes we can make, but we want to look at the 3D-ness of our cube as well. And how many edges have we used? How many vertices does it have? How many faces does it have? And can you draw it? Can you draw the 3D shape? And then of course draw out a representation of all the 2D shapes. Now for going into secondary, and you can still do this in primary, of course, going into secondary, what other 3D shapes can you make with the paper sticks? And first of all, visualize it, imagine it, work out how many sticks you're going to need, and then build it. And then even before you make it, if you can visualize how many edges, faces, and vertices it's going to have. So this is, just to be clear on this, is the face is the the 2D part. The edge, I'll always use this language. The edge is the line, and the vertex is the pointy bit. So this is one vertex, and these are vertices, 1, 2, 3, 4 vertices. One edge, these are edges, one face, and how many faces? Right, and what shapes can you make with the same shaped face? That's another question. How many shapes can you make made out of triangles? Can you make shapes with triangles and squares, or triangles and other shapes? And what shapes can you make? Just imagine them and make them. You learn so much from doing that. And you see how the cube collapses. If you use different shapes, what other shapes can you make that where they will collapse? And have a go at it. See what shapes you can make where they just, I mean, look at that. I mean, literally, it can collapse into a pile of sticks. That's what I love about the cube, and it's not the only shape that does that. There are other shapes, I think, that do that. I say that, and I'm just thinking of one of the shapes, and actually, not sure that it does do that. I have to think about it now. Now I'm going to have to go and make it. There's one shape I can think of, and I'm going to have to go and make it, which is grand. I like making shapes, but it is going to take quite a few paper sticks. So, so yeah, I'm just having a look, see at the activity. So the activity that you've got here is in the description. And I'm just having a look, see what we're going to do as we move up in age. We've got our different dimensions. And we've got, yeah, we're looking at the thickness of a line and how, you know, even if you use the finest possible pencil you've got, is it 1 dimension? Or is it actually, is it 2 dimensions? Or is it even 3 dimensions? When anything that we make a physical representation of using equipment that we've got in the classroom or in the home. And talk about amongst yourselves the meaning of the word dimension. I mean, I've been talking about it for a while now, but why don't, what I probably should have asked at the very beginning is, what does dimension mean to you? What does it mean now? And then we've got, and now I'm going to add a little bit to it, because you can use it as measurement, you can use it as length. So a dimension can be a length. You can be talking about measurement, like what are the dimensions of something. You can gather the dimensions, or we can be talking about how it relates to space. And then moving further, and then now that I'm talking to the secondary learners, we were talking earlier about, you've got the 2 dimensions, go in any direction. If you're going in one dimension, one direction is positive, and the opposite direction, you're actually going in a negative direction. So if you're going in that direction, you're going in a positive direction. And if you're going the opposite way, you're going in a negative direction. And then once you get to 2 dimensions, same again, if you're going east, you're going in a positive direction. As a civilization, we could have decided, when mathematicians first started working these things out, they could have decided to go the other way. But our standard is up is positive and east is negative. So that's what we're using. If we're going that way, we're going in a negative direction. And if we're going that way, we're going in a negative direction. So that's a positive direction, that's a negative direction, that's a positive direction, that's a negative direction. And get at our friend Super Mario, or whoever he is. And if he's going upwards, he's going in a positive direction. If he's going downwards, he's going in a negative direction. Just to add that little bit on there to make sure we're clear on that. And then if you're now between 16 and 18, if you look at the the activity, you'll see the word now starting to talk about polyhedra. So just this works for all ages. A polyhedron is another way of referring to a 3D shape, a solid. But a polyhedron specifically has its faces are all polygons. Now, polygon, I've got to tell my joke now. Sorry about this. I apologize in advance, but I have to tell my joke. What is a polygon? It's an empty parrot cage. And at this point, I usually get blank looks. 1 or 2 people might get it. And I usually have to say, especially to children these days, is, well, what do you call a parrot? What's the most common name for a parrot, at least in English? And that's Polly. And parrot lives in a cage. So, and if the cage is empty, then Polly is gone. Okay, that's the joke. Now, a polygon also means, it's an ancient Greek word, and it means many. Poly means many, and gon means joint. So it could be elbow and knee, a heel. And so on this, sorry, I was like my little talking head then for a moment doing my joke, not very effective. So sorry, this is a 2D. We're going to pretend this is 2D. Everywhere you have a joint, that's basically, you're counting it. This is a 4 joint. So this is actually a tetragon or a square, sort of. It's a quadrilateral. And that comes from the Latin. And of course, the polygon comes from Greek, just to confuse things a little bit. But a polyhedron is made out of polygons. So it doesn't matter what the shape they are, but they've got to be, let's make some polygons now. Here's a polygon. They've got to be proper 2D, and everything we make is a simulation, and it's not a very good simulation. So that's a polygon, and it's a polygon, by the way, it's a closed shape, a flat closed shape, or a 2D closed shape with straight edges. So it has to have straight edges. It has to be completely closed. So this is not a polygon because it's got that big gap in there. It has to be closed. This is just a very poor representation of a polygon, but it does help us because it's definitely not 2D, and it's not flat because it's got a great big hole in it, but it's the edges of the polygon. It represents the edges of the polygon, and it helps us. It just helps us visualize is what it does. So we've got the quadrilateral, and then the next one, now we're going back to the ancient Greek, the next one is a pentagon. Let's see if I can simulate a pentagon here. Yeah, we can make a pentagon. We can actually cut that. Again, you have to pretend it's all one piece. So there you have a pentagon, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then you can make a hexagon. Well, you can make a hexagon. How can we make this into a hexagon? Oh, look, we can do that. That's a pentagon. Now, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yep. Now we've got a hexagon. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It's not what the usual hexagon looks like. That's correct, it isn't. But it still has, it's a flat 2D shape with 6 edges. So closed, so it is a hexagon. So, and your polyhedra will be made, all the edges of your polyhedra will be a polygon, the faces of them, sorry. Now, all your edges will be the same length, at least. To start off with, we recommend that you make all the edges the same length. And that way, any shape you make, it will be slightly simpler because you're limiting that one thing you're limiting is how long every edge is. If you start off making them with all the edges the same length, there are dozens, there might even be hundreds of different polyhedra you can make where all the edges are the same length. And you can make them semi-regular, you can make them regular where all the edges are the same length, all the vertices have the same number of edges, and all the faces are the same shape. Or you can vary the shapes, you can vary the amount of faces on each vertex. You can do variations, but it would be interesting to find out how many regular polyhedra there are, which is all the faces are the same shape, all the edges have the same number of faces, and all the edges are the same length. Right, so I'm going to now stop the share. And so I won't be a teeny weeny itty bitty pointing talking head. And just going to do the last little bit, which is looking at, I'm talking to 16 to 18-year-olds. There are several, well, at least two ways of looking at the fourth dimension. We've talked about the second, third, first, second, and third. Now what about the fourth? Well, one thing, and actually it's the true world that we live in, is the fourth dimension is time. And unlike the first dimension, second dimension, third dimension, where you can go forwards and backwards, in real life, not in science fiction, we can only go forwards in time. So that is a dimension that, and you can Google it and have a nice Google space-time and have a nice investigation about it. And it's a special case in 4 dimensions. And the one of the extraordinary things that mathematicians do, and you get drawn into conversations with mathematicians. You start it simple. You start at an example simply, and it gets more and more complicated. And you look at, okay, 1 dimension. Now what about 2 dimensions? Now what about 3 dimensions? And then the next question, now what happens in 4 dimensions? Does it still hold true in 4 dimensions? And that's what a mathematician will do, and it keep going to higher dimensions. What happens? Is it true in 4? Is it true in 5? Is it true in 6? Some things are true in 1, 2, 3 dimensions and even 4 dimensions, but they might not work in the odd dimensions, the 5th or the 7th or the 9th. And there's some dimensions where things don't work and some dimensions where things do work. And this is all done in the imagination of mathematicians and on computers. There are computers that help with this as well. And this is why visualizing is so important. So you can just go completely out of the real world and visualize these most amazing things. And that is, if at age 12 to age 16 to 18 and higher up, just look at the activity. It says years 12 and 13. And it's just basically got some questions for you to go and investigate and grow from and learn from and grow your mind. I tell you what, going into the 4th dimension really expands your mind in more ways than one. So it's definitely a worthwhile exercise. It's going to serve you well in future visualization activities, because once you've imagined a 4th dimension and you can do a lot of Googling about it, it really helps visualize 3 dimensions. It makes it so much easier. So if you're enjoying these lives, thank you for joining us. If you're enjoying these lives, please do share them. Please do share the group, Making Maths Fun for Kids of All Ages. And we've got all these activities are all AIMSEC activities on the Aiming High website. The link to this one is, and thank you to Tandy, Klaus and May for doing this one. And of course, thank you to Tony Bearden for being the general force to be reckoned with, mathematical force behind all of these activities. And there are 2 YouTube links on this one, so you can see Tandy's video that's a slight variation of what I've just done. And then also there's the video it's on the Math Toys YouTube channel on how to make paper sticks. So there's a nice video on to remind you how to make the paper sticks. And then please do subscribe to that YouTube channel. And there's also the Bubbly Maths YouTube channel, where you will find all the upload of all these lives that I do, warts and all. We are at some point going to go through and refresh them and edit them and get rid of all the technological mistakes and mishaps and things. But in the meantime, they're just being uploaded there should anybody need to be able to access them. I got a request yesterday from someone who says, I really can't let the kids on Facebook, but I'd like to be able them to watch the videos, and they're all there. They're all on YouTube, so that you can give them access there and have maybe a bit more control. So thank you very much for joining us. I must double check now, go and check my status on Facebook. So we've got Melissa, Andy, Samragi, Lucy Omar, hi, Mera, from Norway. Hello, Terry Herbert, the lovely, wonderful Terry Herbert. He's just a delightful entertainer. He does the most lovely magic. He's just super enjoyable to be with and to watch. John Cooper, Frosty, and Meda came on twice. So thank you for joining. I don't see any questions here. I will just double check, see if I can see any questions on the group, and it just doesn't come up. So I'm really sorry. I don't get to check the group until after the live has finished. It just takes too long for the questions to come up. So next live is that was a long one. That was a very long session in 22 minutes at 10 o'clock for the early years. So we're going to go right back. We will still be dealing with paper sticks, but we're going to go make it a much simpler conversation and shorter. And so that's 10 o'clock, 8 o'clock tonight. We'll be talking about tomorrow's activity, which again, it's not coming to me right this second when I want to tell you about it, but it'll be enjoyable. It is. I remember looking at it and remember being excited about it. So please do join us for that. That's 8 o'clock tonight to prepare for 9 o'clock tomorrow morning for 7 to 18-year-olds, and 10 o'clock for early years. That's 4 to 7-year-olds. Thank you very much. Caroline from Bubbly Maths signing out. And now I've got to find the button to press to end the live. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.